I have been taking American Anarchist up on some of his suggestions on looking into some topics from a perspective that I haven't before, and it's been kind of interesting. I've learned about a couple of concepts that were foreign to me heretofore, but I want to take him up on this Walter Block evictionism stuff. And I watched a lot, or I listened to part of the lecture that you sent me, and I don't remember the context of everything that he was saying, but I wrote down just a couple points of analogies that he has to make this theory legitimate, and that is the child as trespasser. The child as a trespasser. I don't see how that can be justified as a position when the child, had no voluntary action. He makes it this analogy between this guy that's walking on your property, and then you say, "Hey, do you know you're on my property?" And the guy says no, and he says, "Well, then you have to get out." And then if he refuses to get out, then you're justified in using force to remove him. But how that person has made a conscious decision to be on your property, or if they didn't make a conscious decision to be on your property, once you notified them that they were on your property, they made a conscious decision to refuse to leave. Where's the conscious decision that this child has made to trespass on this woman's body? The trespasser in the womb and in the uterus and into the woman's body is the rapist. Not the child. Not the child. That's like somebody coming along, dropping a baby off at your doorstep, and you say, "Get off my property." Well, the baby's just sitting there. He didn't try to come onto your property. Some, deadbeat mother just dropped him off at your doorstep, and you're saying, "Get off my property, baby. Get off. Get off." Well, first of all, he has no ability to leave. He can't walk. And second of all, he's not there voluntarily. He's not exerting his will against you. He just got put there. So then it'd be like, go getting your gun and shooting the kid. "I told you to get off my property." That argument fails miserably. Any muster, of logic. And he's comparing this child to other criminals, like shoplifters, and he's talking about, if somebody's stealing your bubble gum out of your shop and all this stuff. And the comparison is an illegitimate comparison. I wrote down here, how can a fetus refuse to leave? And I've already covered that. He talks about throwing somebody in the water that can't swim. Similarly, it would make no sense to shoot a child that had been set on your doorstep involuntarily and did not have the wherewithal to leave. This whole notion of eviction would be the same as if and he talks about implied contracts with the airplane and things like that. That would be the same as having a child at the hospital, loving mother, take it home, feed it a few times, bathe it, keep it for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden saying, "Oh, I don't want this child now." And you take it from outside of your apartment, or if you have a yard, let's say, and a house and a driveway, and just going out there to the end of the driveway, taking the baby out there in his little carrier, and just setting the carrier down there. "All right, baby, I don't want you anymore. You're evicted." Haven't you thrown that child into the water under that same analogy? If anybody did this in modern society after the child was already birthed, everybody would agree that was a horrible act. Even Walter Block himself, he would agree That's an implicit contract. You bring the baby home, you feed it, you have an obligation. So, under the circumstances of voluntary sexual intercourse, it's even more of a problem. I think he's misguided to characterize the child as trespasser in the instance of the rapist. I don't really know what you do in that situation. In my opinion, the rapist is the trespasser. But the argument is even more shaky under the grounds of voluntary sexual intercourse, which is the situation in which he brings this throwing into the water example up. And these implicit contracts on the airplane. You can't just, say, well, I changed my mind on a deal like that. So this problem of evictionism, or this theory, has a few problems. And I'm surprised that libertarians are taking up this cause. To me, it seems like the secularist, atheist branch of libertarianism coming out with an excuse to end the human life. I wind up agreeing with a lot of atheists, a lot of libertarian atheists, even on social issues, especially on market issues, but even on social issues. I agree with the atheists. I mean, it just comes down, in a logical position, our positions happen to correlate. But this seems grasping at straws to me, to somehow justifying the ending of human life. And he says he takes the premise because it seems more logical, but also because it's the more difficult position to defend. And I say, what about the science? What about biologically? The things I bring up. You got two different blood types in the same human being, two different heartbeats in the same, but only one human being. What about admitting that biologically and scientifically, this is a much stronger ground to consider this a human life? So, what about, I don't understand why libertarians, on the personal responsibility side of this, don't behoove the mother to be acting in a more responsible manner. If you want to say child is trespasser in the case of rapists, that represents less than 1% of all abortions. What about the morning after pill? What about contraception? What about all these things? These personal responsibility that libertarians are always out there promoting. Why do we abandon the concept of personal responsibility in the realm of abortion? We want to make some excuse to evict this child that's done nothing and is there involuntarily. Why do we want to make an excuse for that? And nobody wants to address the fact that there are methods that could be much more closer to evictionism in the realm of abortion than what is practiced right now. What is practiced right now is brutal murder, under the premises that Walter Block and everybody else starts their argument under their premises. I'm not trying to get them to agree to something that they haven't agreed to. Under their own premises, what abortion in America today is murder. So this theory is fraught with problems, and I don't understand why people insist on trying to come up with a way to justify what right now is murder. I can go along with the evictionist theory. I can see some of the logic in it, but the logic has problems itself, and the concept seems to be a justification for what we would all admit is murder under Walter Block's own premises. So, I haven't watched the full video. It's very, very long, Scott, but I watched a good 30 minutes of it or listened to it, and those are some of the problems I have with it.